Let me tell you the story and lore of the most infamous Space Marine chapter, the laughingstock of the Imperium of Man, who looked from the outside like a joke, clad in bright and cheery colors, and a general eyesore just to throw the enemy into confusion. I am speaking of the Crayon Eaters. The Crayon Eaters recently came into fame in the wake of the Fourth Tyrannic War against High Fleet Leviathan, when an entire company's worth of Space Marines fought alongside the famous Ultramarines on the planets Kadaku, Avarax, and Demarium. Often they accompany the Ultramarines in a three-man strike team alongside other Marine chapters and bolster the defenses in the Ultramarines and filled holes in the lineup. They fought with the ferocity of a space wolf, the cunning of a raven guard, and the stubbornness of the Imperial fists, and made everyone who ridiculed them for their foolish outward appearance regret their actions. But who exactly are those Marines that look like they led a strike team into an exploding color factory? The chapter's name is actually the Crayon Eaters, and they were created in the wake of the Indomitus Crusade as part of the Grey Shield contingent, reprised from the Gene Seed of the Raven Guard as chapter number 1337. When they were granted the chapter status, they were not at full strength, but merely 275 Marines. They were granted a recruiting world in the Ultima Segmentum in the Imperium Nihilus. The world Schwarma Secundus is a primitive medieval world with relatively moderate climate zones and an Earth-like appearance. Its feudal society makes for great Adeptus Astartes aspirants in the form of monster hunters and questing knights fighting against the countless monsters roaming the wildlands around the civilized urban cities. The chapter quickly established a monastery in the highest peaks of the highest mountain range on the planet and started recruiting from the local populace to get their numbers up to fighting strength. The Crayon Eaters' color scheme back in those days was a simple primer gray and a white stylized vulture as a chapter symbol. Up to this point, everything was the standard procedure of creating a Space Marine chapter, and the Crayon Eaters developed absolutely normal. The divination of a Space Marine chapter from the norm is often a result of the influence of the societies they recruit from, and in this case it was a quite unique one at that. You see, the people of Schwarma Secundus are extremely superstitious. You know, the usual knock on wood for good luck, throwing salt over the shoulder, spitting out if evil is mentioned, don't walk under ladders, and so on. But if you grant such people the power and the lifespan of an Astartes warrior, things can get out of hand quite quickly. For you see, if a new Space Marine chapter is formed, it is common practice that experienced officers of other chapters are invited as advisors and training personnel to get the new recruits up to speed. If those persons have superstitions and customs of their own, those get adopted by the Crayon Eaters like a dry sponge absorbs water. It is unclear who started it, but one of those liaison officers traded an armor piece of himself with one of the recruits for good luck and remember him forever. Combine that with the new recruits who come back from Mars as new tech marines, who brought back the superstition that you should never ever repaint an armor, otherwise you would anger the machine spirit, and you got the recipe for a disaster. Instead of just receiving officers from other chapters, the Crayon Eaters send out their marines to a whole bunch of other chapters to learn from and come back to their brothers with new intel, fighting styles, and of course, new armor pieces in different colors. The more the armor of a Crayon Eater gets changed by that process, the more other chapters seem to encourage that and willingly give up and trade their armor pieces to those of the Crayon Eaters to laugh and ridicule them behind their backs. And from that point it was a short step for somebody to mispronounce their name as Crayon Eaters. And there comes another of those superstitions to bear, for you see, one Marine from a Death Watch kill team brought back the idea that the real name of a person holds significant power, and only nicknames and call signs should be used to deprive the enemy of that power. And so we got famous warriors like Captain Crunch, Sergeant Fruit Loops, Your Mom 123, XX, XS, XX, and not to forget the chapter master, the Nord Huey. And so they officially changed their name to Crayon Eaters. Nobody knows how they fight at chapter strength, because you most likely just see a single Marine somewhere between other chapters as an exchanged Marine, but if we will someday, that would be a sight to behold.